It's Laura Eubanks of Design for Serenity with your succulent tip of the day. And Greg and I received a 911 call from our client in Sunset Cliffs that the beautiful anchor rock that we staged fell over. Oopsie. So we are here to set that up again. And it also, I thought it would be fun to obviously check on the garden. It's been a couple of months, 2-3 months since we did this installation, and just, to see how everything's looking and how everything's going. Look at the beautiful chairs that she set out here on the patio. Aren't those great? I just adore the color. She hasn't got to doing the tiling on the steps yet, but that is still in the works. Everything in this garden looks fantastic. It just looks like she went through it with a hoover. She's been so meticulous about keeping everything looking so good. We do have an issue over here with some nut grass that has popped up, and this is from the neighbor's side. She does a lot of watering on this lawn, and this is the stuff that doesn't really respond to any kind of chemical, and you pretty much have to get it by the nut. So you take a butter knife or your multi-tool, and you got to get it. You got to get the whole thing, or it will come back and it will spread. So for somebody like me that is the poster child for OCD, there is nothing in this world that I would rather do with my time than eradicate nut grass from a cactus and succulent garden. Oh my gosh, this is so rewarding, you guys. But just to pull on it, see that one? Oh no, I got it. I mean, it's just, it's sharp. It is really, really sharp. No good to spray, no good to pull the top off. You got to get down under there. Also, we did a garden in Mission Hills a few years ago, and the client was really concerned about nut grass. So we put down weed barrier fabric, commercial grade. All was well until the weather warmed up. We had done the garden in February, and by May, this was happening in her garden too. And I just didn't understand it because we had done the fabric. And when I went over and investigated, turns out that nut grass had popped right through the fabric. That's how insidious this stuff is. So I had to send a design assistant over there every week for months to basically do what I'm doing here to get rid of it. Okay, but yeah, you get the idea. I've made Elaine aware of the situation, and it's a small enough area that it's not going to be that hard to correct. But yeah, the stuff is starting to spread, and I would hate to see it, move into the garden proper. Yeah, everything looks great. We'll stand up our rock. I'm not going to do that for you because it's going to take Greg and I both to do it. So we'll have to put the camera down. But there was another issue that I did notice, and that is that our mangave kaleidoscopes, I have one in a pot right there, and then I have one in the ground over here. They're looking not great. See that? See how they're pouting? Now remember, just because a plant is pouting does not necessarily mean it's thirsty. You cannot assume that. So I didn't. What I did with this one, which is what I noticed when we first got here, and then I stopped so that I could share with you what my process is. The first thing that I did was evaluate the plant. Okay, what I see, I don't see any insects on the plant. I see new growth that looks healthy and turgid. I see pups coming that are also healthy and turgid. But these leaves are clearly, very, very stressed. And what has happened is that this plant has used all of the moisture in these leaves to support the new growth. So that could mean that it's thirsty, but it could also mean that there's a disease or an insect or a pest. So after I determined topically that there were no issues, I very gently dug dug the plant up to evaluate what was going on underneath. And I don't see any grubs. I don't see any insects. There's nothing visually showing. There's no nematodes. The roots look healthy. They're growing. So the next step is to use your nose and sniff around. The soil smells like soil. It smells wonderful. There's no rot. There's no odd odor. Then you take your hand and you feel around. I'm feeling for stickiness or, something that doesn't feel right. I'm feeling for wetness. This plant is cool, but I wouldn't even call it moist or damp. It's just cool. So my diagnosis is that these mangaves just simply need a little more irrigation support. So, and this one was pouting from day one too. I think it went into a little shock when we planted it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to water it. And I told Elaine that if I'm right about this plant just being thirsty, that in a couple of days it should perk right up. So you can also attempt that if you have decided that you've checked all the other potential problems and you see no problems. I'm too impatient for this. There we go. Give it some water and stand back. Very nice. Oh, I'm just so happy. This makes me feel so good. It's like watching your children eat a good meal. Oh, yes. All right. So, this is I probably gave it about 2 gallons of water, I would say. So I'm going to go over here to the hose while Greg kind of gets up close and personal and shows you the tapestries and how beautifully they're doing. And I'm going to fill up this watering can and go water the one in the pot. Also, remember the Plicatillus hybrid cuttings that we planted are looking really great. And I'm not going to bother those. I'm really tempted to pull on them and see if they're rooting. But I'm not going to do it. I'm just going to let them ride. Okay. Yeah, Greg and the guys did set this garden up on subterranean drip, and it certainly seems to be doing the trick. Now the pots, though, are not on irrigation. They have to be hand watered. So thus again, I really think that the mangaves are just a little water stressed. And the Cameronii, I always talk about the aloe Cameronii and how I like to work with these as cuttings to pull that beautiful red color. Let's see what's happening with them. Almost not a darn thing. We got a tiny little root starting right there. But look at that. It's still just a cutting. Guys, it's been months. Plant's fine. It's absolutely fine. And it's thinking about throwing off some roots. Okay. But it hasn't yet. All right, let me get over there and water that mangave. Many of you were concerned also on this installation, being a front yard on a somewhat busy street, that people would come and steal, but they haven't, thank God. She hasn't had any losses or casualties, which is a really good sign. Okay, and then I'm noticing too that this echeveria next door is also, I can tell that's dry. I just know it is. So I'm not exactly sure what the irrigation situation is right there. It's possible that it isn't getting any. It may have been a plant that I put in kind of at the last minute. In which case, what I'm going to do, because I don't want Elaine trying to walk down the slippery hill to water this plant. So I'm going to remove the bloom stalks, and that will send the energy back to the mother, so that she doesn't have to use all of her nutrients to support these blooms. That will give this Echeveria a better chance at a healthy life. You know, and then it's just general housekeeping. You know, these blue elf are done, so I can snip and clip on those. Oh, this is so fun. Okay, so I've got a little water left. I think I'm going to put it on the mangave, what I've got left. Okay, and I will let you guys know as soon as I hear back from Elaine as to how these mangave have responded to the additional irrigation. Okay, well, tomorrow, remember, we are starting a new project in Mira Mesa. It's going to be a really gorgeous front yard. I've got some insane plants coming from the North Slope, from Waterwise Botanicals. I also have stuff coming from Caesar at Sun Valley, so it's going to be a really, really fabulous installation. Now, Greg and I will do what we were summoned here to do, and set up this gosh darn rock. This has been Laura Eubanks of Design for Serenity in Sunset Cliffs with your succulent tip of the day. Bye, guys.